Okay, we're recording. Don't say anything you don't want recorded.
That's for me.
No, Linda, that was not for you. Okay, chapter 11. The particulars of cleanliness, honesty with our own motivations. Oi, oi, oi. Okay, let's see if we can get into this. So he says, basically, we have to be careful with everything. However, our rabbis tell us, after viewing humans and their actions, that theft and forbidden relationships, oops, what happened? Theft and forbidden relations are sins which a person's soul desires and lusts for. So you've got to be particularly careful when it comes to these. And this is going to be most of the chapter, going into the details of these, what they are and what we need to avoid. And we're going to start with theft. So he says most people experience a taste of theft in their business dealings. Well, he actually starts off by saying most of it, we don't do obvious theft, but we taste theft. I like that phrase, right? We get the taste of theft in our business dealings by rationalizing permission to profit through their fellows' loss. They may tell themselves business is different, right? How many times have we heard, do we say that to ourselves, right? It's business, right? It's business, but business doesn't make it okay. So the way he addresses this, sorry? It what?
In The Godfather, you know, it was just business.
Right. Nothing personal, just business. Correct. Your screen's a little, your video's a little on the top of your heads. Can you bring it down a little?
I'm gonna try.
Or like just position it in a way that we can see a little better. Would be better. Okay. So he says, first of all, let's realize something. There are many negative commandments referring to theft. Okay, in the 10 Commandments, you shall not steal. You shall not rob. You shall not oppress, nor shall you deny. Right? If you owe someone money and you deny, that's a type of theft. You shall
Is that
not.
any better?
No.
Come closer to the table.
You can't.
If you,
Needs to be lowered down a little.
I don't know, are you using a laptop or a tablet?
I'm using an iPad.
An iPad. So make it more vertical. Yeah, there you go. Okay, perfect. Good.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. Okay. We see more of Saul than you, Donna, but there you go. Okay, put your head on his shoulder. All right.
There you go.
I think that could be.
Yeah.
Do not deny, do not lie. If you lie to right, that you about someone owing you money or not owing money, you shall not oppress one another. The Talmud says that means not to overcharge. You shall not push back one's neighbor's boundary, right? That's land, and also encroaching on another's business. There are real laws in the Torah dealing with fair business opportunities, and even opportunities, right? Not to deny another person of their business opportunity. Okay. Not only the explicit and well-known deed of theft or oppression, which is forbidden, but rather anything which may eventually lead to such a deed and cause it is included in the prohibition, right? So sometimes we make a contract, or we go into a deal, or we know that, we go into something and we think, oh, further down the line, I'll be able to really profit or to really win on this deal at the expense of someone else. The Torah, by the way, right? If you think about the philosophies, the economic philosophies of the world, right? Is the Torah ideal capitalist or socialist? What does the Torah say, right? You've got Democrats that use the Torah all the time. You've got Republicans that use the Torah, right? Everyone quotes the Torah. It's actually really interesting. There's a museum in Washington called the Bible Museum. I don't know if any of you have ever been there. It was sponsored by the evangelical Christians, actually by the Hobby Lobby people, and cost them $850 million. So they built this museum. It's interesting because actually, I would say about 80. I went. Someone invited me, and I went. I'd say about 80%, maybe more, is devoted to the Old Testament, which I found fascinating. But one exhibition, which I thought was also fascinating, was slavery and the Bible. And they had on one side of the room all those that used the Bible against slavery. And then on the other side of the exhibition were all those that used the Bible for slavery. Right? So I was like, which verse are you quoting? So, we go into things where we're often at the beginning, okay, yeah, but we can be sly, and you can, right? Anything which leads to someone else being unjustly, I didn't finish the idea, right? So what is the Torah? Is the Torah a capitalist society? Is it a social, a more of a right, communist type of society? What's the ideal?
Capitalism is about competition, so somebody loses and somebody gains.
That's interesting, Abraham. I don't know if everyone has to lose in a capitalist society, right? If you have an open free market, a free market is, Milton Friedman, the great economists said that the free market will be the true market, and the fair market, because you'll have supply and demand. So I'm not sure if people always lose. There are people that will definitely be more fortunate than others, right? Because the guy that's happened to get what everyone wants will be able to profit the most. So I think it's actually a bit of a combination. The market is very much a capitalist market, right? Government does not get involved in too much of what business should be done and how business should be done, as long as it's fair. Profit is definitely something which is allowed, which is encouraged. Makes the world go round. On the other hand, it's quite social in the individual realm, meaning that the individual is obligated to give charity, is obligated to support the Kohanim, right? There are societal institutions which the individual needs to support. So in a business sense, it's very capitalist. In an individual sense, it's quite socialist, that one is obligated to take care of others and think about them. I think that is the division. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda forbade a shopkeeper to distribute roasted grain and nuts to children in order to accustom them to frequent his shop. The other sages only permitted it because his competitors could do likewise, right? So free competition, right? Equal competition, fair competition. This image, by the way, is meant to be of a drug dealer, but that's really how drug dealers work, right? They start off by giving people free drugs, and once they get them hooked, addicted, then they start to charge, right? So one has to. Rabbi Yehuda was very aware of that. Be careful, right? You're giving unjust, unfair presents, gifts to people, and right. Who else is very good at this? Casinos, right? Casinos are excellent. You know, you ever get an offer for a free night and this and that, and they know exactly who they are targeting. There's a book called Habit. I don't know if you've seen it. Very interesting book, where they go through this because the casino people invested tons of money to understand how people develop habits and how they can create a gambling habit, right? And we probably all know people that gambling has been their demise. Okay, they likewise, this is fascinating, by the way. This is absolutely fascinating. The rabbis exempted hired workers from reciting the Hamoitzi blessings over bread. Can you imagine that? You're at work. Okay, so I would say like this. So far, we've discussed theft from the side of the employer, inside the business owner. Now we're going to discuss it from the point of view of the employee, right? So you're hired for the day. You're paid for your time. So the Talmud says that employees, hired workers, are exempt from saying hamoitzi over their bread. They don't even have to say a blessing. And from the last blessing of the grace after meals, right? Because those are rabbinic. Those are rabbinic mitzvot. So you don't have to say hamoitzi or the fourth blessing of Birkat Hamazon. And even in the case of reciting the Shema, they're required to pause from their work only for the first chapter. How much more so for things that are optional? And if he transgresses, this is considered a thief. He is considered a thief because you're being paid. The way the Talmud puts it is that when you are hired, you are selling your time, and every bit of that time is now owned or being paid for by your boss, right? By the person you're working for. So the modern image of someone working and having their little phone on their side, right, is all too often the image. It's become the norm, and it's really problematic because you're hired for time, right? You're meant to be working, and you're checking your personal stuff all the time. There was a rabbi, it's actually a wonderful story in the Gemara in Ta'anit that says that Abba Chilkiah, let me pull it up quickly. It's a fantastic story. Where we Ta'anit 23b. Okay, so remember, we want to go to Ta'anit 23b. So we're going to go to our Sefaria online, sefaria.org. Our text, we're going to go to the Talmud. We're going to look down for Ta'anit. We're going to go to page 23b, and there we are. Okay. Now, okay. The Gemara relates another story, this time about Choni HaMagal's descendants, who were also renowned for their righteous deeds. Abba Chilkiah was the son of Choni HaMagal's son, so he was a grandson. And when the world was in need of rain, they would send sages to him, and he would pray for mercy, and the rain would fall. That's how righteous he was. Once the world was in need of rain, and the sages sent a pair of sages to him so that he would pray for mercy and the rain would fall. They went to his house, but they did not find him there. They went to the field and found him hoeing the ground. They greeted him, but he did not return their greetings. Towards evening, as he was gathering firewood, he placed the wooden hoe on one shoulder and his cloak on the other shoulder. Along the entire way, he did not wear his shoes. But when he reached the water, he put on his shoes. When he reached an area filled with shrubs and thorns, he lifted up his clothes. When he reached the city, his wife came out to greet him, adorned with finery. When he reached his house, his wife entered first, he entered afterwards. And afterwards the two sages entered. He sat and ate bread, but he did not say to the sages, "Come and eat," as was customary and polite. He divided bread to his children. To the elder child he gave one piece, and to the younger one, two. So Abba Chilkiah said to his wife, "I know that these sages have come due to the rain. Let us go up to the roof and pray for mercy. Perhaps the Holy One, blessed will he, will be appeased, and it will rain, and we will not receive credit ourselves for the rainfall." They went up to the roof. They stood in one corner. He stood in one corner and she stood in the other corner. Clouds began to form on the side where his wife stood. When he descended, he said to the sages, "Why have you come?" They said that the other sages have sent us to the master so that you would pray for mercy for rain. He said to them, "Blessed is God who did not require you to petition Abba Chilkiah, as the sky is filled with clouds and rain is certainly on its way." They said to him, "We know that the rain has come on the master's account. You can't fool us. However, let the master please say and explain to us these aspects of your behavior that are puzzling to us. What is the reason that when we greeted the master did not return our greeting?" He said to them, "I am a day laborer, hired for the day, and I said to myself that I may not delay my work to answer you." Okay, so that's the bit that we really want, but it's a very interesting story, so I'll complete it. They further inquired, "And what is the reason that the master carried the firewood on one shoulder and his cloak on the other shoulder?" He said to them, "It was a borrowed robe. I borrowed it for this purpose, to wear it, and I did not borrow it for that purpose, to place wood on it." The sages continued and said, "What is the reason that the entire way you did not wear your shoes, but when you reached the water, you did?" He said to them, "The entire way I can see and take care where I walk, and therefore there's no need to wear my shoes. But in water, I cannot see. Therefore, I put my shoes on to avoid hurting myself." They said, "What is the reason that when you reached the shrubs and thorns, you lifted up your cloak?" He said to them, "This flesh will heal," pointing to his legs, "if it's scratched by thorns, but this garment will not heal if torn." They further inquired, "What's the reason that when you reached the city, your wife came out adorned in her finery?" He said to them, "She dresses that way so that when I walk through the city, I will not set my eyes upon another woman." They asked, "What is the reason that she entered first and you after?" So he said to them, right, "Because you have not been checked by me. I cannot be sure how you will act, and therefore I did not want you to be left alone with my wife. And what is the reason when you ate bread, you did not say, 'Come and eat'?" He said, "Because there is not enough bread for guests. And I said to myself that I should not gain credit from the sages for nothing. By offering you food, I cannot serve you." They asked, "What is the reason that you gave the older child one piece and the younger child two?" He said to them, "The older child stays at home, and if he's hungry, he can eat at any time. But this younger child sits and studies in the synagogue, and therefore he is hungrier." And then they said one final set of questions. "And what is the reason that the clouds began to form on that side where the master's wife stood, before your own side?" He explained, "Because my wife is frequently at home and she gives bread to the poor, and therefore her provision of benefit to the needy is immediate." i.e., soon as the rain falls, she is able to provide the needy with provisions. Accordingly, her prayers were answered without delay. I, in contrast, I give money to the poor, and consequently, the benefit of my gift is not immediate. It takes a long time before the rain, and therefore it took a long time before the rainfall results from my ability. Alternatively, her prayers may be answered first because when certain hooligans were living in our neighborhood, I prayed they should die, but she prayed they should repent. And indeed, they repented. And that is the story of Abba Chilkiah. Okay, it's a fascinating story. So Abba Chilkiah, back to Mesilat Yesharim, Abba Chilkiah did not even return the greetings of Torah scholars in order not to be idle from work as he was doing for another. What will they answer then, those who occupied themselves in their own pleasures and idled from work during the time they were hired out? Or if they occupied themselves with their own affairs, each person to his own gain? Now, the truth is, when you hire someone, obviously, you know, they're going to sometimes, right, take a phone call, do something that they need. So the actual law is, halakha, Jewish law is, if the employer does not forgive him, he is not forgiven. The converse is also true. If the employer understands and forgives this behavior, accepts it, so then it's forgiven. But a lot of the time, I don't think it is forgiven, actually. I don't think that employers want their employees to spend much time on doing their personal things during work time. So that's why it's such an issue. Okay, now this is shocking because he says, what happens if you take off work time to do a mitzvah? Right? You go to work, you're getting paid, but you know, a mitzvah comes up and now you want to go do your mitzvah. So, you know, what better rationalization than that? So he says, not only that, but even if one does a mitzvah during the time of his work, it will not be considered a merit, but rather a sin in his hand. For sin cannot be considered a mitzvah. And scripture states, I am God who loves justice and hates theft in an offering, in a sacrifice. In relation to this, our sages of blessed memory said, one who steals a measure of wheat, mills it, bakes, and recites a blessing over it is not blessing, but rather blaspheming, as it is written, and the robber who blesses blasphemes God. Right? Woe to this person whose defense attorney has become his prosecutor. Right? He thinks, oh, look at me doing my mitzvah. Meanwhile, no. The whole thing's going to backfire on you. Right? So that's, you know, that's a tall order. The Holy One, blessed be, desires only emunah. Right? We'll often speak about this word, right? The word for faithfulness in Hebrew is emunah. Emunah is often used for faith, right? To believe in God, your belief in God. But the real understanding of the word is faithfulness, right? I often think, I say, does God exist or not? That's not a Jewish question. Of course God exists. He took us out of Egypt. He spoke to us on Sinai. He fed us in the desert for 40 years. What do you mean God exists or not? You're in front of me. I see you. Of course you exist. I don't ask that question. The only question is, do you believe God will be faithful? Right? God's made a lot of promises to us. That's Jewish belief, right? He's going to take care of us. We're his people. That's faithfulness. And are we faithful to God? Right? Are we faithful to God? God also, right, gives us our soul back every day. And right, but are we faithful to God? So that's what he wants, faithfulness, to be fair, to be honest, to act with integrity. These things are very intuitive, but as he said, when it comes to business, when it comes to short, we rationalize it and sweep it away. In this regard, Scripture states, God guards those who are faithful. There's a special blessing from God to those who are faithful in their dealings. Yeah, they might not be the wealthiest people, but you know what? They're the ones who are better off. Actually, yesterday we were studying the Parsha, not yesterday, Shabbos. We were studying the Parsha, and it had the mitzvah of Shemitah. And Shemitah is the sabbatical year that we let the land of Israel. We don't work the land of Israel for a year, and the verse is very complicated, not too complicated, but series of verses that says, God says, and if you keep this, I will bless you. And should you ask, what are we going to eat in these years? God says, I'll bless your 6th year so much, you'll have enough for 3 years. The 6th year, the 7th, you're not going to work the land. And even the 8th, when you're planting your produce for the 8th year. So some of the commentaries say that the first verse that says, if you do this, I'll bless you, says, you won't even see the blessing, but you'll eat a little and there'll be a bracha, there'll be a blessing. It will be so nourishing the produce of the 6th year. It won't increase in quantity, but in quality. And therefore, the normal amount for the 6th year will be enough for 3 years, because you can just get away with less. You'll be happier with less. Should you ask and be concerned, which means you're not on that higher level, then God says, okay, I'll bless you even with quantity. You'll have a lot. And I was thinking, that's not only true about produce, that's true about life, right? The people who have a deep faith, people who are faithful to God and believe that God is faithful to them, can actually have the enjoyment of life from a little, right? They can be very happy people, don't need a lot, because they find the blessing in the quality of life. People of lesser faith, right, feel terribly undone by or lacking when they don't have the quantity. So this is very true about our life experience, right? To a person of faithfulness, a person of integrity, of faithfulness in their own dealings and belief in God's faithfulness, actually enjoy life very much with a little. You don't need a lot. Even Job testified on himself. If my step is turned aside from the path and my heart has gone after my eyes, if any speck is stuck to my palms. Consider this beautiful analogy in which he compared unseen theft to something which tends to stick to a person's hand. Flour when kneading, right? The image of for even though one does not intend to go and take it and by itself, it sticks to his hands. Nevertheless, it remains in his hands. So too here. Even though one does not go out to actually steal, it is difficult for his hands not to be completely empty of theft. And what's practical about this is when people overpay you, right? When people underbill you, person did a job, and you know how much it's meant to cost, and they send you the invoice, and they made a mistake. They underbilled you, right? They didn't send you the correct bill. Or someone gives you too much change, or right? You have money in you have their money. It's not yours. It belongs to them. So they made a mistake. Yes, people make mistakes. That doesn't mean they lost the money, right? So that is the general rule is that the eyes draw the heart to seek to rationalize permits. Heterim, a heta is the Hebrew word for what seems attractive and desirable to them. There's a beautiful verse in the prophet Zephaniah. There's a road in Jerusalem, Zephaniah. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. Right? Sherit Yisrael lo ya'asu avla v'lo yidabru kazav v'lo yimsa b'fiem lashon tarmit. And he says, similarly, the sages said, one may not embellish old merchandise so that it appears new.
No,
Right?
they do it
Selling
also.
something, right? You can't, what you say, Doc?
That's what they do at Hadassah.
That's
He's
what-
talking about the resale shop.
The resale shop.
Everyone knows that the best stuff's at Hadassah.
That's right.
It is.
Okay. Now, if you ask yourself, with all these prohibitions, how is it possible for us to, in our business dealings, not to try to convince the prospective buyer towards purchasing the merchandise? Abraham, look at this. For whatever is in order to show the prospective buyer the true value and quality of the merchandise is good and upright. Right? As Abraham says, you can dramatize the truth. But anything which is to conceal its defects is fraud. You cannot lie and forbidden. This is the general principle of faithful business dealings. Right? So there it is, right in the Mesilat Yesharim, a principle for business, for advertising, and for good dealings. And you know, when we stop to think about this, I think all of us realize it's not something to take for granted. It's something we need to be careful about constantly because it comes up over and over again. Okay, good. Questions, comments?
Yeah, on the point about if somebody gives you, say, at the supermarket, it gives you change that's too much. And what I read somewhere was that if it's a Gentile, you take it. If she's Jewish, you refuse it.
Right, so there is such a thing. I still think it's better to give it back. And first of all, you don't know, in most supermarkets, you have no clue who the real owners are. Right?
You're not just doing it for them, you're doing it for yourself.
I think so too.
Because that extra money will burn in your pocket and make you think about it. And it's just not the way you live.
Not worth it.
Rabbi, I have a question about faithfulness.
Yes.
Every time we saw it today, it was all about honesty. But that's really not what, explain to me.
That's very funny. I just heard this question last night. Faithfulness is a type of honesty, right? Faithfulness means that you keep your commitments. You made a commitment in business, you made a commitment in a relationship. You keep that, right? The faithful adherence to commitments and promises. That's what faithfulness is. Honesty is emet. It's much bigger than that, right? It's a much more general concept that you know, is about speaking honestly. It's about many other things as well. So,
But if you say to someone that, you know, you have faith in such and such as a verb, it's really more, it's different than, it's having
well, I tell you what it means.
beliefs almost.
Yes. Meaning, when the two sides of the coin are emuna and bitachon, right? Probably you heard those words.
I heard of Amuna.
Emuna is faith, bitachon is trust. We trust the people or God, right, who is faithful to us. Once you know that when someone's trustworthy, that's what faithful means. Be trustworthy in your dealings, right? That other people can know for certainty they're not getting ripped off by you. You're not taking more than is due to you. You're not giving them less than what's due to them, right? That's what he's talking about. So that's the emuna over here, right? I do think it is a type of honesty, right? It's honesty in practice. All right, friends, that's who we are. Now
Very good.
now go teach the rest.
Yeah, that's it.
Only if you come with us.
Fine, I'm coming. Yeah, it's not a simple thing. It's not a simple thing, and you know, Jews do not have a good name. You know, definitely out there in the business world, very aggressive, over aggressive, and it's not. I don't think it's to our benefit.
I don't know. It's a verb. It's a verb.
Right.
In a derogatory way. It's
Yep.
a derogatory verb.
Right.
To
To
Jew.
Jew 'em down.
To Jew. Right.
Yep.
That's it breaks my heart when I hear that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
you know, what, I understand that years ago, many, many years ago, the only way you bought something was to haggle like that. And I guess the Jews did it well. And that's where the expression came from. Because the most people didn't just buy something, they negotiated a price. That was the
Yeah.
way you bought in your.
Yeah. Listen, okay, that's a nice. I like your explanation.
I
Right?
mean, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying what it was.
Well, you know, there's
It's room for negotiation.
nothing wrong with negotiating, right? And you can negotiate negotiate in a strong way, but you can definitely be over, right? You can be over aggressive when you know that the person, you know, when someone's in a tight spot and they really need business, and you wiggle them and waggle them down. That's not fair. That's not right. And I think that's, listen, you know, historically we were on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, in Eastern Europe, we were not living in the lap of luxury that we do today. And, you know, and Jews had it very hard. So they, you know, but yeah, things have changed. We can change. We can be more honest, and we'll be okay.
We'll be okay.
I had an experience of this. My wife and I were in Turkey. We're in a bazaar and we wanted to buy a carpet. So I'd never seen her do business before. And we went to a shop and big pile of carpets, and the man was going through them, and she was going, and a fella saying, "Can't you just buy one, Beverly?" The poor guy, you know. So it's rather than going down, and this had a very strange look on her face. And she said, "No, thank you," and walked out. So the shop guy came over and he said, "Madam, are you Jewish?" So he said, "Yes." So I said, "How do you know?" He said, "I know." So, you know, it's a Middle Eastern thing anyway. The Arabs are like that, you know, it's a Middle Eastern thing. But what happens is that being in the Christian sort of values, Judeo-Christian society we're in, they don't understand that. So it's seen as a negative. But it can reach a level I've seen becomes absolutely obscene. Not with my wife, it was somebody else. The guy fellow saying, like, "Oh, poor guy, you know, you just want to earn a living, you're knocking him down to nothing."
Right.
And so it really is a reality.
It's a definite problem.
Yep.
And it's something that I think we, just like we have to overcompensate in other areas, I think some of us have to overcompensate in this area as well to change that point of view.
Agreed. All right, everyone. Now, I think next Monday is Memorial Day.
You could see that was.
Next Monday is Memorial Day. So I think we're gonna take a break, okay?
Okay.
Then the Monday after that is Shavuot. So we're also not going to have a class. So our next class is going to be on June the 13th.
Okay.
Okay. Until then, you've got 11 chapters to review.
Yeah, that's right.
The test is not, I'm not going to have trick questions. No trick question. They're going to be very basic. You just need to know the material, okay?
Indeed.
Thanks.
Buck, we'll see you tomorrow.
Susan, good to see you. Always good to see you, Susan.
She says thank you. We
What's
need
it
a lip,
called?
She
we
was,
need a lip reader on our club.
Yeah,
I gotta get my
my
mother's
son-in-law.
Zoom fixed.
My son-in-law is an amazing lip reader.
Do you know the story of my great aunt?